On session 4, that's animation, and we're going to start with just a basic bouncing ball, and just to show you the animation editor and the curves and keyframing and how you can actually keyframe different settings you have. So I'll start by just getting polygon, mesh, sphere, make it a little bit smaller, 2, and we'll just zoom out a little bit. We can use our front window to be the animation, so we'll have the ball kind of bounce across in the front window. Now there's two ways of keyframing. You can key in, all keyable, mark parameters, mark keyable. There's lots of options here. You can always change this over here under save key mapping. So you got key marked, all keyable. Key marked is the standard, and then you're just going, if you pick translation, it will only key translation when you hit K or hit the button here to save the keyframe. So K, and you'll see this is keyed. Control K opens up the kinematic properties, and whenever you see these red icons, it means those have a keyframe on. If I move it, they'll turn yellow. Yellow means that these are moved but haven't been keyframed yet. So scrubbing your timeline would mean they jump back. If you're off a frame, you'll see green showing that the object has been keyframed, but you're actually not on a current keyframe at this time. There's also some other displays you can have to help you out. Here on the KPL, same idea. This is more similar to your channel box inside the Maya. Just close this down for a second, and if I go here, and you can key once and you can key again to unkey. If you want to key all the keyable parameters that I actually find is easier and prefer, you can change the setting to all keyable. When anything that's set as keyable, when you key, and the hotkey is K, we'll see now it keys everything even though it's not marked. Marking means these are actually highlighted in this yellow color. Again, K again with unkey. Oops. Shift K will unkey, or using the button here will unkey your current keyframes. So let's go ahead and use this all keyable. We'll move this up here for our first frame, and we hit K and we key all those parameters. We'll go to frame 10, I'll move this down and hit K again, 20, I'll move this up, K, 30, move it down. Okay, now it'd be nice to see actually where this is going, and you can do that in several ways. There's something called animation ghosting. If it's turned on in several places. The view here, you can turn on animation ghosting. Right now, don't see any different. The actual object, if you go to the Explorer, I just hit selection here, and we look at the visibility. It also has a ghosting option. You can turn ghosting on here, and it can be object ghosting. It shows you the before and after positions. There's point. Well, I like trail, and it shows me a curve where the object's actually moving. You can change the color and the fading if you want in the display options. And here you can turn off different ghosting or turn on different ghosting modes. You can see how many frames, whether it fades, turn the fade off, change the colors, key step, lots of other options you have. The key step will give you, so trail subdivisions give you more detailed curves. That's good enough. We'll keep going now, and you can see frame 40, we can move it up here. And I found that the trail very useful to kind of see where things are going. And we'll just zoom out a little bit more. So a couple more bounces here. Make one more bounce up. And then a little roll at the end, so we'll just move forward here. Okay. we can see now that there's our animation. If you want to turn this off at any time, just here you can turn off animation ghosting or turn it on again. So we have this, but it doesn't look particularly pretty. It looks like a ball on a cable. So now we actually have to change what happens between each frame. You do that with the animation editor. Again, animation edit, and 0 is a hotkey. Let's open that up. And here we are. Just move my screen around a little bit so we can see everything update. Now, one important thing here is some of the preferences. Right now the preference is set, so if I go in here and edit this curve, so I can just move, here's a select point, you can just select and move it. You can see right now it's moving interactively. That's because I've changed the settings. Right, the default setting under preference and under animation editor, under view, the speed is set here to active and speed 0. The number here, you'd think a higher number would be faster, but actually a higher number is slower. So setting the number to 0, right here under view to 0, means now it's real time. Of course, to change the playback frames to real time, you can check what your playback mode is if you want. So playback options, you can set that here to whatever frame rate you want. Set to NTSC right now. So now we hit playback, we can see it's moving fairly well. We're going to start editing our curves. We can pick these points down the bottom. We can break the tangents with this little button here. O is orientation, and the hotkey again is O as well. We can pick several ones of these if we want, and hit O, and then you can edit all your tangents together. Of course, some of these I need to work separately, just so it's not too crazy. Okay, you can frame the curve. See it. You can also zoom in and out in several ways. Okay, so that looks looking a little bit better. Just tweak some of these a touch more, and we can see here how our curve is changing. And if we hit playback the animation, it's more, so we can see everything together. We can see now it's got a lot more of a bounce to it. If you hit playback with your left mouse button, it plays on the first frame. If you hit playback with your middle mouse button, it plays on the current frame. I'm going to edit this curve as well. You can delete points by selecting points, hit and delete. You can edit these curves, points here, just to get a bit more of a increasing bounce over time. I'm just going to edit this last one here, just frame that one in, straighten it up. There we go. I'd like them all to be bouncing so it's on the ground as well, so we can pick all the bottom points. Yeah, so I get all of them. And then we've got value. Right now the value is set to 3.4. Let's go to a frame when it's actually on the ground. See 2. So we want all these values to be 2. So I'll just go here and type 2. That'll set those bottom values all to the same value. There's several other tools you can do in here. There's Q, and you can draw a region around them. And this region allows you to scale keys from a region, so we can see I want them all to bounce a little higher. You can pick several curves and do a region over several curves with the Q if you want to. It's a great way of quickly scaling your curves. You can add points, remove points, edit points, select curves, edit with curves. Lots and lots of options inside here you can work with your curves. This jump into the trail is due to the trail display. Again, if you want to, you can increase the trail subdivisions to get a more detailed trail. And that was just under display options. A couple more things I like in here are some curve processing and what's called the high level editing of the curves. Say you've decided this is animated, but you actually bake this down to individual keyframes. There's actually under keys, it's going a little slow with the capture right now. Back. Okay, let me just pause that first. Okay, so we want to talk about some curve processing. What I'm just going to do is quickly go in and just make the keys in every single frame. So I'll pick both these curves and just do a key, and this normally you wouldn't do, but you can go in and process the curves where you can resample them, and these are under curve processing options. Resample puts a curve on every point every frame. There's also different options in here to smooth fit. There's also cycling, constant cycle, lots of different options in there. So say you had a situation you're dealing with, say, motion capture, and you had a point every frame. You say, oh no, you really want to do is adjust a couple of these curves. This first bounce is not quite right, second bounce, you want to edit some of these a bit more. So in that case, what you could do is go in and pick a curve or several curves, use this high level editing. There's several options here. There's absolute offset, relative offset, or absolute scale. Absolute offset allows you to go in and start adding points. Just as you add a point to a curve, you use the add point tool. But this time we'll turn on the compensation, the C icon, and we can start adding points. And just going in, adding some points in, wherever you want, and then adding more points to kind of highlight the curve where the points are. Just going to move this point here, tangent a bit, and the tangent weight, the handles, this is the L icon. If you turn this on, it will move them in equal distance. If you turn it off, you can move them separately. So we've got these points around here. When turn the C off, then when you move these points around, you're actually going to edit the curve itself. As you can see. Now, one thing you have to watch out for is when you do edit them, you can get this kind of bumpiness. You can see here the bumpiness in the preview, and you especially will see this bumpiness on the curve. If I frame this, frame this, you can see the bumpiness on the curve. When you turn HLE off, you see the curve is now bumpy. This bumpiness is due to the interpolation, and if you pick the keys, there's what's called automatic slope, and that just makes sure the tangents are aligned correctly. So automatic slope, and now you'll notice the curve is no longer bumpy, it's nice and smooth again. So that's one thing you have to watch out for if you do use the high level editing. Just undo all this, because I actually didn't want to edit it. The other option you have for high level editing is, instead of going in and using, actually I think there's a few more undos in here. There we go. So using the absolute offset, you can also use what's called relative offset, that puts a point every 10 frames to get you roughly lined up to start with. And of course you can always add more points if you want to. You can't remove these points. I can't say I'll pick that point, delete it. So sometimes I prefer using absolute offset. Scaling means you can use this and actually scale these to scale down your animation over time. So that's an overview of the animation editor and basic animation. Just going to go and zoom out and just do one more technique in here, but I like to do when I do a bouncing ball, and that's actually going in And we'll just go here to get rid of all the extra keys. Let's see if I got enough undos left to remove the resample. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so back to the original animation. I should like the ball to roll a bit. To do that, I'm going to go in and use an expression. First of all, I already have animation on everything, so I don't want to actually have to remove the animation first of all and make it cleaner. Just use the animation editor. I can pick all the flat curves and just hit delete. That's one easy way of getting rid of those. You can also go in and right mouse button, so I put them all in here, and hit delete. So not delete. Right mouse button and remove animation. So to do that again, if you have curves that you want to remove, you pick the curves, right animation, remove animation. So those curves are now gone. As you can see, it's only the two X and Y that's animated. So what I want to roll is, I want to roll it on the Z axis. Okay, I'm rolling here on the Z axis. And it's moving, I'm going to roll negatively in Z axis. It's moving along the X axis. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go rotate Z, right mouse button, set expression. The expression view will come open and it'll say equals 0. So we're going to change this by deleting it, object, and we'll pick the sphere. Then parameter will be kine, parameter will be local, and parameter will be position X. It's normally going to be local in 99%. And that's going to be divided by the diameter. Now the size of this ball is actually 4 squares. So I know the size is 4, so it would be pi times 4. Pi is 3.14, you could do that, or if you want to be more accurate, you can function constant pi. Pi times V star, and then 4 is the size, just by measuring this, by looking at knowing the size of it. And then last of all, want to multiply that by, in this case, minus 360. Minus 360 gets rolling in a negative direction. If you hit that, you can hit validate to test it, and then apply to apply. It's going to say it has a cycle dependency. Just say OK. It's just saying you actually have an expression on itself, related to itself. But in this case, it's OK. You'll see as I animate this, or scrub the timeline, so it's going to be rolling as it goes along. And if we actually move it back and forwards, you can actually see it rolls automatically. So it's a nice easy way to make something roll. You can edit the expression by just going to the expression. You can just go here and you'll see it again, and you can edit it if you need to. You can also look at the parameters, Control K, and you'll see the expression is down here right now. And you can actually turn the expression off and have the expression disabled, or turn it back on and enable it. And this can be animated. It's really cool. So that's it for standard and basic animation with a little bit of expressions. Are constraints and linking. So constraint requires the way of linking together or controlling one object with another object. So we'll just go here and make a few different objects. I'll make a cone, and I'll make a couple of cubes. I'll just zoom out and just duplicate these. Just make that smaller, easier. And we'll just move these around. You can just hold D and just click, and that will duplicate where you click. So let's do 3 cubes around my object. Okay, so here we are, simple scene here to test out some constraints. Standard one is you just take an object and under here constrain position, pick another object, and the first object will move to position of the second object. The first object now won't be able to move. The second object will control that first object. If you want, you can pick this object, you can look at in the Explorer, this is 8, see under cone, under kinematics, now there's a constraint group. Here you'll see your position constraint, and you can click on that and see different options such as the offset, and also the weight. You can also do what's called constraint compensate. Clicking this will allow you to move the object and allow it to change the offset without actually using sliders. And now it's turn it off, it's still constrained, but it's been offset. Let's go back here, now I'll just lock this. We also got a weight. If you decrease the weight all the way to 0, there's no constraint, and as you increase the weight, you'll get, so you actually get a little bit of lag if you're only constraining one object. Get like a fake springy effect. 1 will be the full constraint. There's also something called rigid or soft. If you go soft constraint, you'll see no changes unless you turn these options, and then it will actually follow the object. So that's kind of fun. It's more like constraint that kind of drags behind the object. Okay, we'll just turn that back off, and we just can go back to rigid. And this again is more of just a bit of a offset. We can pick this and just reset that rotation. You can reset the rotation zeroing out these numbers, or transform reset rotation. So that's some basic point constraint. Now if we constrain between two objects, so we pick this, we'll just get rid of the offset as well. So if we constrain between two objects, you may not get what you expect. Constrain, position. Now it's moved up to the first object. What happens is the constraints are additive, so if we set this to 0.5, then it is between the two objects. Of course, between three objects, it would be a little bit more complicated. Now here's the position, so we went between three objects, so we picked here, constrain, position. Now it gets to here, and again if we set this to 0.5, it's not quite there yet, so we'd have to adjust these numbers so you can see this is, so you can see where each one goes. So this is, say, 0.5, we can actually have each constraint look at them, and they'd have to be here, and we get the constraints. The first one set to 1, and we may have to adjust each of these to get the right effect. So that's 0.5, and this last constraint should probably be 0.5 as well, and that should, I believe, exactly working. Oh, there it goes, just have to move it. So there we go, with between three objects. Since that was a pain to set up, a much easier way would be to remove the constraints, constrain, remove all constraints, that will remove them all, and just do a constraint 3 points. 1, 2, 3, and that's constrained between 3 points. This also has an up factor you can play around with and change. And also a tangent. play around that, and you'll get the object now constrained between 3 objects. If you don't want the up vector, you can just turn them off, and then it'll just be a constraint with no rotation. So that's another useful constraint. I'll remove the constraints, just do a couple more. Constrain, remove all constraints. Of course, the orientation constraints, pretty straightforward. Of course, when you rotate this object, the other will rotate. There's also a very useful one called a pose constraint that works almost like a parenting. And again, this is much better if you have some compensation. You can turn this on beforehand. And you'll see if I pick this object, move it, turn the compensation off, or I rotate it, or I scale it. It will work like a hierarchy, even though there is no hierarchy here. Some really fun constraints, but maybe not be quite as useful, is just quick set this one up. Primitive cube, set that to about 2, and primitive grid. Okay, so one constraint that can be fine, if I just take this cube here, just do a quick animation, because constraints actually will work with animation as well. So they kind of blend together or get controlled, so you can actually have an animated and constrained. Just going to go here to the last frame. Just rotate it a few times. So we'll do minus 360 times. You can type in numbers in here and do a little math inside the box. That's really useful. So we've got like a rolling cube here, and we're just going to do a bounding plane constraint. So we can take this object, constrain bounding plane, and pick this. Right now you see it's moving, just a little time. It's moving like we expect. So I move the plane up, turn loop on so we can see this. Now it's actually being controlled by the plane. Go and shade it. And we can even rotate this, and we can see how it works. So you can see how it's being controlled with that constraint. So anyway, that's a fun thing with constraints, something worth definitely to play around with. The other thing I want to show you is linking, and this allows you to link one object to another object, very similar to a set-driven key you may see in a program like Maya. So what we're going to have is a little ball here, scale it down a bit, and this will be a door, and the door will open to allow the ball to go through. So you just have the object selected, or object selected, and we just go to the window, so view, animation, parameter control, I think. Yep, there we are, parameter control editor. There are several ways to do this, but here's a window created for you. So there's a driven target and a driven source. So in this case, the driving source will be this. So I'm just going to reload that and lock it. Driving target, or driven target, will be this, I will do that. And what's going to happen is, this will be driven by the X, and this will be driving, in this case, by the Y, driving the Y, position Y. And then what you just do is you just do link, and then you set the values, and then we can go in, move this, pick this, move it up, and set the values again, and then we'll move this here, move this down, and set the values again. Now what happens is when we move this, it goes up and down, and if we pick this object and hit 0, you'll see a curve, and this curve of course is using this expression. And you can edit these curves of course, like any curve, to give it a bit more weight if you need to. So now this has a better look. Of course there's no keyframes, it's just like a set driven key. Eventually you would key this. You can use this to control lots of different things. Skeletons here and basic rigging, so I'm just going to get here show you the primitive basic man. This is just a basic exercise skeleton, no rigging, no controls, and you can see here how things are set up. I'll just pick a leg here, go to the Explorer, Explorer, and we're just going to, of course, set to objects only. Just going to do middle mouse select this and just frame it. And you can see here, got leg root, a thigh and a shin, and a foot effector. The effector is the IK of the ankle, and you've got the foot root, foot, and toe effector. So that's kind of how it's set up. It's actually the foot is actually parented to the leg effector. So we'll show you how it's actually set up a leg with a basic controls, and as well we can show you that. Just going to zoom out a bit and build a basic 2D skeleton. Now the difference in 2D and 3D, I'll show you this first, is a 2D skeleton will always have a 2D plane, whereas a 3D skeleton, let's see this if I build it in 3 dimensions. Let's get one more joint here. It says have as many joints as I want, and this will have a 3D plane. So if I move this, so I can do that. If I move this effector here, you can see it moves, maintains its 3D plane. If I switch this to a 2D effector, just to pick the first joint, this will all the settings, including the IK blending, IK root blending, and of course the joint type, so 3D, I made that 2D. See now the minute I move the handle here, it's going to jump and go, you saw in this window here, it jumped and went straight. I'll just undo that for a second. So you can see when I move it, that's 3D. If I pick the first joint, hit enter. Each joint has a joint length control as well. For 2D, and it jumps to this kind of straight. Okay, we'll just delete this one. We'll pick right mouse button from the root, delete that one, keep this one here because we're going to build a foot now. 2D join. Now what you can do, I'll just delete the whole lot actually. Show how to actually do a skeleton. First weight in the leg, I would go here, place the root, the first joint, second joint, a little bit of bend so it knows which way to go. Then I hit middle mouse, and that would end the joint, end the chain, but still keep me in the tool. Then left mouse, create the second part, would be the foot. So those are now separate. Next thing we go is parent them together. So we'd open this one up, and parent the root of this, we'll just name this quickly so we know this is leg, and this is foot, and we drag the foot root onto the effector. Now when we move the effector here, you'll see the foot will move with it. So I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a series of locators or nulls in here. So we'll just create those. So primitive null, but same as a my locator. We'll just create one, duplicate the one to go to toe. So leave it a little bit low because we can match them later on. Duplicate it again. Go here, duplicate once more, go to the ankle. I could match these exactly, but as long as they're close, that's good. I mean, if they are matched, it's even better. And if you want to match them completely, well, actually go, I guess I didn't get my heel one there. So in that case, I just check what I've got here in the Explorer. Yeah, just need to duplicate this once more, move it down for the heel. There we go. And we'll name those. This is an important name. I'll do CT for controller. This will be toe. This will be the ball of the foot. And that will be the ankle. And then what we'll do is a series of constraints to actually control this once they're in the hierarchy. So hierarchy will be heel to toe, to ball, to ankle. And that's the reverse of the actual how the foot was constructed. And that's known as reverse foot setup. Just open the orders up. So then we do our constraints. I'm going to turn my compensate on just so things don't move too far. And we'll just go here, constraint position, and the ankle controller will be, sorry, wrong way around it. We'll pick the ankle effector here and go constrain position to the ankle controller. Sweet. And then we'll go next one. We'll pick the this. We'll pick this bone here, and we'll go constrain position to the ball controller. And last of all, we'll pick this effector, constrain position to the toe controller. And if all works, let's turn the compensation off. I should be able to hit the heel with my middle mouse button as a hierarchy. And we should be able to move this, and the entire foot will move. We can also rotate this to rotate from the heel, or we can pick the ball. If you want to pick these as a hierarchy, middle mouse, rotate from here, and you can see it rotates. If you just pick it by itself, it will still work because the constraint will, and then of course the toe rotate it. Now it's hard to see what these are, so I'm going to pick these 4 controllers, and we're going to change the icon display to a different one. We use the box display, and it'll be easier to see, or any of the other ones you can do. You can maybe turn the heel to the circle, or actually I think the arrow rings or rings be better for that one. You can change the size of it as well if you want to. But that's one way of setting up what's known as a reverse foot, and that's a technique you use, and using lots of different rigging techniques just with a hierarchy as well. Okay, if you don't set all this up, you can go in and use one of the default rigs, and they actually have a few rigs here. They got the primitive model right here, biped skeleton, biped rig, and that's what you want, biped rig, and that would be a character rig with foot setups, spine setups, lots of different controllers already put in there to make your life easier. This also has the added advantage: if you pick the joint and hit F3, this middle box, you get what's called a synoptic view that has some settings on here where you can say I want to pick here and move it. It has some stuff set up for you to help you with controllers. Like here's a foot controller. Also has some reset and some hand controllers built into it, and it has ways of saving the keys. But overall, this rig is set up and ready to use. Has up vector constraints and lots of other things, and this is a good starting rig if you want to fit it to your own unique character, there's also what's called the character biped guide, and this is a way of going in. There's lots of settings I'm not going to go through, but it's a way of going and making that rig fit to your character by moving these boxes around. You can make this fit, or you can even pick a few of these boxes and rotate them. It kind of rotates. And it has a symmetry set up to help you pose and position these to fit your character. So, and that's another setting, another place you can use. This is using one of the joint length attributes that allows you to adjust and lengthen your joints without changing the scale of them. What I'm going to do here is, instead of using one of these, there are several rigs and characters set up in the net view. If you go to the net view, from any view, you just go here, find the net view, or you can open it up as a floating view, or Alt 5, and you can see here there's a bunch of models. You can see there's some biped skeletons, there's a complete man, quadruped proportional guide, a woman, so lots of things you can go here and get. So just go back on model, and there's also, if you go on the main one here, there's a mocap rig that's quite nice to use when you're working mocap. There's also man complete, so you can just drag and drop these into your scene to open them up. We'll just use the mocap rig for the moment because it has some nice animation already set on it, and it has some basic setups you can use, such as a foot setup. And we'll go back here to the top view. I just middle clicked, that was my previous view. You can see this rig is fairly straightforward. It has this middle controller here that allows you to move your character around. Of course, unless you've keyed the feet have heel, and of course you can rotate this on the heel, and I believe this box here rotates just the toe separately, so it's not a major foot setup, but it just has a few basic things set up for you to animate it. But instead of going in and keyframing this straight off, we can actually drop actions in, actions that can be used in the mixer. You can also create your own actions where to later on, and save them and store them and reapply them. So let's just go in and get some actions. Again, in the net view, you can go to animate. So these are just actions saved out and then put here. You can also load them in through the animation mixer. So let's go down and we'll find animate mocap. Not all of these work. If I say club art or some of the other ones, they'll be different, but we'll just find a walk. So here's a walk confident. We'll just drag that and drop it under any joint in the character, and the character disappears. It disappears because the starting point of that walk was further away, and you can see now. And here's something interesting, and this got me before. It doesn't necessarily start walking. It starts at the beginning, but has a pose here. It's already out in space, and you have to trim this clip to make it work properly. If you want to see where it is, you can go Alt 0 to mixer, or view animation mixer, or you can go to one of these views and change it to the animation mixer. We just have a floating mixer for the moment. You can double click on the top of any of these to kind of roll them up as well, but it can be useful. Just refresh, pick the character, and just refresh this, and we can see here there's a clip. I just move it back here, and you can see there's a clip of our character. Again, it has that first bad frame, so we have to watch that, and we'll fix it in a second. We get another one. We get my walk stumble, and we can drag that either onto the character or into here. If we drag on the character, place another track. Now there's overlapping tracks right now, so it's a combination of the two tracks together. We can zoom this out a bit. Just use the standard S keys or zoom keys, whatever you have set, and we can put these more in a linear fashion. But you see it stops at 500 or 100 frames. Actually, we only have 100 frames set here on the timeline. So we can increase these frame numbers up to higher numbers. We go up to 500, and then now we can now see both clips. This clip starts at the center. This clip we can see will need to be trimmed for it to work correctly. And we could say we want to start here and then blend into this one. Go trim this clip, so you can go to any clips, and you can go in and go, just frame that. I can go forward one frame, and I can use clip, and I can trim before or trim after, or trim before, trim off that first frame. Trim here was causing some problems with the clip, so I've actually just reversed this, or I could rebake this down to a new clip. So there's actually some options here. Freeze a new source, or freeze and replace, that kind of bake it down to a new clip. Make sure to keep those frames so it looks like. Anyway, instead of doing that, what I'm just going to do is just undo that for a second. See if it does it. I'm just going to leave it as it is and just reversing. So I've got now going from stumble first, gets up, and then it's going to walk off. Again, these don't line up. So the easiest way to do this is pick the two clips, 1, 2, and clip, match clips. You can do body center, you can left foot or right foot. See how it does body center. Maybe not ideal. So we can remove the effect. Takes a second. And we can make it, this time we'll use left foot. Match clips. Left foot. Okay. This time it's going to match based on the left foot. Now it seems to do a quick step there because it went from left to right. I'm just going to do a little gap here and just use one of the transition tools. So we've got mix, standard transition, 1, 2, and then you can see how it's going to mix in to the little step there. It's not going to look perfect because I'd have to tweak this more, but it definitely is one way to work. Things like overlap these. Just right mouse them. So you can also overlap the clips and have it blend a different way. In this case it looks very wrong, but it's definitely something you can work with to get the correct effect. So that was the offset. You can see if I just delete this one here, go to the end of this frame, like there, the middle mouse drag and drop, just kind of go over this one, and I can right mouse button, do what's called set pose offset. Oh, there we go. I had to select these joints, so you can see here the pose offset was a nice little offset. A little bit of jump there again, so a little transition will help mix transition tool. The other thing is these transitions are working fairly well. When I first did this, the character's head kind of dropped off, and what happened there was the head was set up. This is what we'll cover. Steps in space here. The head was kind of set up to be used with these offsets. So if you look at clip properties, sometimes you'll find the head is checked on here as the XFO, then it will offset the head as well. You want to make sure that XFO is what uses matching and offsets is checked off. And that's in the clip offsets. Now, what happens if we want to add our own clip in here? So we can mute any of these tracks, turn them off, and say, well, the tracks are muted, we'll go back to first frame. And we want to go in and have this head turn. So maybe somewhere around here, we'll have the head turn. So I just want to set some keyframes. Okay. Do another one here. And go back here. Now, and rotate the head. Since that's ugly, so let's go to global. We'll just rotate the head around to look at the camera. and K again. And we can see here, there is a little animation. But we're going to make it as a clip, so we can actually make any of these into a clip. By just going on to store, you can store transformations with the poses, or F curves as an animation. We'll just do animated parameters, or keyable parameters, whichever you want. Just we key everything, so just do that. And we'll call that head turn. Okay, well, unmute these clips. Head turn's gone away. So now what we'll do is just go in here, add track. So insert, you can do insert source. You can see here head turn. And now find a good frame. It's actually, as it's falling, the head is turning slightly. The music you'll see with or without the head turn. Next is animation layers. So I'm just going to get this time just a basic character. So we're just going to go to model biped rig. We'll just use biped rig for this example, and we're just going to do some quick animation on him. So just go here and just save some keys. I'm just going to go to the synoptic, just quickly key all. I'll quickly put a key on everything for the first frame, and then we'll go here to last frame. We'll move them. Oops. We'll move. So I'll just go in and just do some animation here. So let's quickly move the foot up there. Hips forward a bit, and yeah, I'm just using the key all to use a little script here to key everything. There. Onto the ground. Again, I'm not worrying about heel to toe so much. Just doing a couple of basic motion here, so we can look at the animation layers. So what we've got here is first step. There. I'll do one more, feet down, hips lined up, and keel. So it's nice having a synoptic view. I could have done this by picking each part and hitting K, or making a little script for a keying script. So I've got some very basic motion here. Got a little bit of sliding here. If I want to fix some of that, we can go in to the animation curve editor, and you can see right now we've got some weird things. You can change the curve type, so you've got keys, you've got plateau selects. If you pick some keys, you can go key, plateau, and get rid of any of the weird plateauing effects that sometimes you get. So keys, plateau. Okay. Just don't want those feet to be kind of wobbling around a bit there. That one's still going a bit. Do that. Where was that one? Oh, there it is. Okay. So again, plateau those ones out. Keys, plateau, shift and minus actually will do that. Okay. So just being a little fussy there with the animation. So we've got some animation here, walk, and I've decided that, I want a little extra turn around here, like turning the body. Well, I can actually go here to keep and change from scene layers, animation layers, and we can just make a new layer. So you may have to pick your character, and you can just go here and create a new layer. And now on this new layer, we can go in here and say, I want the character to have a little bit of a turn here. So we'll just rotate this, and rotate the head, and we hit keel, and those are now keyed. Now it's now left in that turn position. So let's go back a few frames, and we can do what's called a zero key. So we'll zero these parts out. So it's actually zero these as well, and then now add a zero key. So now it turns, and back here again. We'll pick all the parts we want to, and do another zero key. So now we've got a little bit of turn and back here. And that's the use of layers. Now if we want to say, well, I don't want to see this layer, we can take this layer and mute it. And now this layer has no effect. We can turn the layer back on, unmute it, and the layer does have effect. And layers are also shown in your animation mixer. So if we go to mixer, you can actually see your layer here, and you can actually blend the amount of layers used, just as you would blend some animation in other ways. So layers are great. You can merge together layers and lots of other things in here. So we can take layers and you can duplicate and mute. You can create new layers, delete layers, zero keys. And I believe there are ways to go in and take a layer and collapse them down and merge them together. Collapse animation layers, and this will merge them together to combine. And we can see that if we look at the curves as well, you can see here we've got base layer curves, and we've got layer 1 curve. So each curve has a base and layer 1 curve. So you've got 4 different parts. You can see how this is set up.